My name is Greg Nolder. I'm VP of Applied Analytics at Denali Federal Credit Union. I'm also a community manager for CUlytics and am hosting the call today. Our webinar today is a case study by Safe Credit Union, their journey into business intelligence and analytics, and looks to be a very interesting presentation. Before we get going, I just make a few announcements. In April 2nd through 4th next year in the Seattle area, Redmond, Washington, there will be the Credit Union Analytics Summit for 2019. A couple of items there. There's a survey available that we would invite everybody to participate in regarding topics of particular interest. Also, we are taking entries for people interested in making presentations. And so if either of those things are interesting for you, please go on the website and participate. A quick note about a service offered by CUlytics, which is called Quick Start. It's just a good way to help you get started on a data analytics journey. And if you'd like to set up a call, there's places to initiate that on the website. Also, please have a look at Solutions Gallery. We often have new vendor offerings, and if any of your vendors are on the Solutions Gallery on the CUlytics website, please feel free to leave a review. And then also just to note that there's some additional new blogs coming either on or coming on the website regarding marketing, digital and mobile banking, and so on. So we'd invite everybody to do that. So I'll again introduce our topic today, which is a case study by Safe Credit Union, Journey into Business Intelligence. Two presenters today. Andrew Leong is Data Architect at Safe, and Grace Roberto is a Digital Marketing Analyst. I believe they're going to introduce themselves, so I won't do that now, and I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen, let you guys share yours. And Andrew, you may need to within the Zoom system unmute yourself.
Can you guys hear us?
Now we hear you. Thank you.
Okay, great.
We got scared for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we hit the unmute button, didn't hear anything back. Okay. Can you see the screen also?
Yeah, indeed. Loud and clear. Both of them.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you for the introduction, and thanks everyone for joining this webinar again. My name is Andrew Leong. I'm the Senior Data Architect at Safe Credit Union. Joining me is my colleague, Grace Roberto. She is the Senior Digital Marketing Analyst. And in this presentation, we'll be going over our BI and analytics journey, specifically our award-winning cash rewards program. And this will be a more in-depth look at the presentation that we gave at CUlytics earlier this year. So feel free to ask questions in the chat window, and we'll go ahead and answer those at the end of the session once the presentation is done. And for those of you that ask your questions in public, you can reach out to us either through LinkedIn or through the CUlytics website. Okay. So our data journey begins in late 2016, where our environment consisted of a legacy reporting platform that we had used for the past 15 years that was provided to us by the vendor Fiserv, and it was called Knowledge Share. And this platform it's a Hyperion-based platform that was being sunset by Fiserv. It was actually being sunset by Oracle, which was forcing it down through which Fiserv was using. And so we had about a year to move off the product before it was no longer going to be supported. On top of that, our data warehouse was provided by Fiserv. It was also about 20 years old, and we had fairly limited flexibility in what we could do due to the controls that we were contractually obligated to be under. So next, because that platform was being sunset, we were in a research project to find a new BI vendor, a next generation vendor. And we were looking at 20 plus solutions that were out there on the market. This started in early 2015. And we had narrowed down our selections to three solutions at the time, which would be first, ClickView or ClickSense, also Power BI. And lastly, we had just started to in-house development of our new member loyalty platform or our cash rewards platform. And this was to replace a vendor-provided solution by FIS. And we decided to do that due to the lack of innovation that we wanted to put into the product, and that was not going to be supported by FIS at the time. Sorry. All right. So one second here.
We're also worried about the actual legacy platform itself. As Andrew mentioned, that has significant barriers to entry in terms of the usage that was occurring with the current product. It was at a 27% utilization ratio, which relative to in the Radin financial group, that put us in the 37th percentile. So we, of course, wanted to increase that utilization ratio. And the prior rewards platform itself had significant issues with low member engagement. It had a very non-intuitive UI. Moreover, it had a login that was apart from the online banking vendor that we used too. So we saw lots of breakage in terms of fulfillment with our user base. So of course, to get the project kicked off, we went into research mode with the different products that were currently out there from a lot of the big banks as well as regional banks and credit unions in our Sacramento area. And we took a look at the different types of cashback offerings that there are out there currently. So one of the major ones, of course, is and they have a Quicksilver card, which is very standard. It's 1.5% cashback purchase, unlimited, so no cap. We also took a look at Citi Visa Costco card, which caused a lot of waves a few years ago when Costco decided to break with American Express as their payment processor and then switched over to Visa. And when they switched, they made changes to their cashback offering as well. So they did a tiered system in specific categories, 4% with the gas at a cap of $7,000, then 3% with travel and restaurants, 2% for purchases at Costco, and then 1% for all other. So mainly no cap except for the 4%, the highest cashback category for gas for them. And then there's, of course, the Chase Freedom card. Another one similar to that is the Discover, which is a 5% cashback card for rotating categories, but that's capped at $1,500 per quarter. And then outside of that, a flat rate of 1%, no cap otherwise. So from that research, we decided that we wanted to take the best elements of all those different card offerings for our own cashback card. So we decided to go with a unlimited rewards card. And of course, unlimited for a 5% category is a significant differentiator for us. The one major thing was that we were looking at transaction volumes and trends for the members to create a member-specific category that a member could select each quarter. So if Andrew is a club warehouse shopper, he could get that type of 5% category, as opposed to me if I was working on improving my home, installing a new kitchen, I could see a 5% in the same quarter for home improvement stores. So we really wanted to focus on leveraging our own transaction data to increase transaction volume and spend. And outside of that, we also decided for 3% on the essentials that users or members would typically need to buy, so gas and groceries and restaurants, and then 1% everywhere else. So with this new platform, we of course wanted to gauge and then optimize the member engagement. And we needed to make sure that we were selecting categories appropriately based on their trend patterns in order to maximize our ROI as well as the member give back.
Let me jump back this slide really quick. Sorry. So one thing I'd like to add to this really quick is that the product that we decided to go with was something that was not available out there by any of the vendors that were providing solutions for this. And the main key ingredient of this is that the 5% rewards that we're talking about are done at a member level. So a member chooses what category they want, which in turn on the back-end systems makes us determine rewards at a member level. Products that are out there were global, meaning that everyone on the same credit card would have a type of reward. So this really forced us to jump into a new area where we would be doing rewards calculation individually based on the member that was using it. The one thing we like to do at the beginning of any project is that, and this is not just a project, but either a data or integration project, is really do a proof of concept. And what this does is that it allows us to determine whether we have the ability fairly quickly to execute on that project, right? We try to stay as quick and as simple as possible, just tackling the main problem areas of the project. It lets us anticipate where the pitfalls are from either a technology perspective or a lack of knowledge from a resource perspective. It also lets us know where we need to focus on, right? If we don't have that knowledge, then can we attain that knowledge in some way through help or contractors or training? And then it lets us know what our challenges are going to be and where that risk, and so we can scope it out and kind of put that into the project schedule so we know how to attack the challenges that we face. So in this specific project, what we did for our rewards program is that we created a simple ETL process where we took the Visa data that we already get at a transactional level, looked at all of them, created a simple ETL database, ETL that data into a database, and then tried to do some individual calculations on there and see if we could do that in a reasonable amount of time. The POC obviously was successful in this one, and it actually gave the business, once we showed them this POC, the confidence that we could execute on this project in-house. Didn't have to go for a simplified version of the feature set.
And it should be said too that the program manager wanted something very simple, more akin to that Capital One card, where it was just a straight 1.5% cash back. So it evolved, the project itself and the scope evolved pretty significantly once there was a certain level of buy-in from the program managers and the executive team to know that we could do this custom development in-house.
Correct, yeah. And we now use this methodology of doing a proof of concept in almost every project that we're involved in. So it's something that is really helpful to us, and it's something that they almost expected at this point. All right, so how do you plan and implement this? So,
of course, the part of it was determining the resources that would be involved. It would, of course, have a significant IT component to that. So that included Andrew, the data architect, a BSA, and a team of developers. And on the business side, of course, card services, which was the main program manager and pro team, as well as finance, to make sure that our targets in terms of ROI would be appropriate. Marketing, to of course get the word out there about this brand new cashback card. And then compliance, retail ops, and education and training. had a data discovery component that was very significant as well, because we had to analyze and trend the historical data outside of our legacy reporting platform, because we need to determine the baselines in point of sale transactions, new cardholder conversion, and our utilization ratio in order to set what our KPIs for success would look like. And in terms of solutioning, we applied agile methodology of rapid prototyping iteration so that we could keep moving in this process to be able to make, quick changes where necessary.
Right, so one of the first things that we did was to look at the underlying data that we had, and then also the what architecture was available to us. So the first thing that we looked at was, okay, we're currently on an Oracle platform that has limited functionality, and we knew that wasn't viable for the solution. So we instead moved to SQL Server. One because we had an enterprise license for it, so not that it was technically free, but we already purchased it, and we created a read-optimized database specifically for the BI portion of this. Next is we created the ETL pipeline to pull in the historical data that we had from Visa, and also the new data that was coming from our transactional database that was being built for the. Next, we talked to the stakeholders to find out what their reporting parameters needed, so we could capture the correct data into our databases. And then once we had that information, we created a data model in the Power BI platform so that it could then be leveraged to used in visuals in the Power BI cloud. At the time, it was using the Power BI cloud. We'll go into where it eventually evolved to in the later slide. So challenges that we faced. So as in a data project, especially dealing with multiple data sources, you're going to spend 80% of your time really on the data, right? It's looking at the multiple sources. It's never in the perfect format. So you're going to be pulling in. I think we had 7 or 8 different sources for this one, and my entire a couple months were probably just spent on trying to get that data to merge together well and model that data. At the same time, we were building the member loyalty platform at the same time that we were doing BI with it. So it was kind of like hitting a moving target. Once we had built the ETL pipelines or cleansed the data exactly how we wanted to, that underlying data source would change a little bit. So we had to and have that synergistic relationship with the development team. We were still in the RFP of 3 different BI platforms, but we selected Power BI, and this would be the first project on that BI platform. So a lot of people had to come up to speed, including myself, and go through different types of training and set up the infrastructure for it. Fortunately, at the time we were still in the Power BI cloud, so there wasn't a whole lot of infrastructure set up, but there still was some coming up to speed on it. And then finally, with any project, there's developer turnover of people, coming and going from the project. And we had our primary developers either go on leave or actually exit the company at the time. And Power BI enabled users to really consume and use a large amount of the data easily, and this really allowed the business to appropriately select the spend category words and monitor the spend engagement and the effectiveness in real time, whereas previously the reporting would be days or weeks behind. So what does the end product look like? So first of all, we took a mobile-first design approach to this, and so we created the user interface in a responsive user design, and we did it in Angular and .NET. We integrated it through with online banking so that it was a single sign-on, so a handshake, so it would be a seamless interface with what our members see. And we also had an administration feature, which isn't pictured here, but what the administration side sees is almost identical to what the member sees. So our frontline staff would be able to support our members looking at and have the exact same experience that the member would see. So it was kind of a unified approach through all the different ways that the product would be seen. Finally, we decided to try to increase our engagement through a gamification approach. So how this worked was, a member would be asked to choose a specific category to get a 5% reward on. And then we would let them know after the quota was done, did they pick based on their spend, the most optimal category for their reward. So we would let the member know that they either succeeded or they got something better. So we kind of added that little approach to it to kind of help out the engagement.
We did also offer a good amount of customizable features for cashback redemption, which stands apart from even some of the big banks who, of course, have fairly high thresholds for cashback. I think our redemption minimum is $10, and members can actually schedule monthly, whenever they want to have the cashback be automatically sent into their account. It also adds a layer of simplicity if they choose to want to schedule their cashback to come within a certain time frame. So we wanted to add that extra layer of flexibility for them. So in terms of taking a look at once the product launched, we would now are analyzing the results of the cashback categories that are offered on a quarterly basis, and we use that to select optimal reward categories to increase both ROI for us and then cashback to our members. As we mentioned previously, the business stakeholders can track the point of sale trends and member engagement in real time in Power BI and help us to make adjustments accordingly as we're looking at what categories are starting to gain popularity in terms of transaction volumes. And as we continue to analyze members, the platform can be leveraged and scaled to use predictive modeling, which we're starting to dabble into now, to determine what products and services members are likely to want or need in the future. In terms of the actual performance of the application growth for this particular product has grown very significantly. From October 2017 to March 2017 to the next year's time frame, we saw a 97% increase in organic applications. So this was post-launch of the new member loyalty platform. So very pleased to see that members are very engaged with this product from an application standpoint. Moving down into the funnel to new cards opened, you can see that there's tremendous success there as well. We had a 146% increase in cards that were opened from Q1 of 2018 versus the previous time frame. There's a 20% increase in new card openings from the October to March time frame versus the previous time period. But when you're talking about new card openings for Q1 of 2018 versus the previous time, that's where you really see that impressive increase, because the 2 quarter time frame shows pre-screen cards too, which are kind of a different redemption in terms of what we're bringing in terms of new cards. We also saw increased spend. So from that same time period, October to March, we saw a 51% increase in cardholder spend. And now looking at a current pre-screen that's will end at the end of August, we saw a 131% increase in cards sold during the current pre-screen, even though we were actually showing the travel card that we offer as the primary. So people would enter their fulfillment process and then actually select the cashback card instead. And members with the active cards that have received from the pre-screen average now 12 transactions versus 10 from the previous year's pre-screen. And just some positive feedback that we're seeing come through in our review system. One of my favorites is a member who recently said, "I love the reward system, getting rewarded for something you were going to buy at the participating store anyway. Now that we have moved and I need some places I can go in the Carson City area. I have recommended it to people. I use it several times a month before we move." So we do see that the members are really enjoying the cashback offerings that they're receiving from us.
So another important KPI that we looked at is the utilization rate. And so the October to March 6-month time period versus prior year, we saw a 14% increase in utilization. So that may not sound it's good, but it's not groundbreaking. But you have to remember that this includes a lot of cards that we consider inactive cards, so zero transactional cards that stay zero. So the actual overall, so that kind of brings the average down. But even with those inactive cards, we included in the average, 14% is actually quite a bit because the actual active card is much higher. On the right-hand side here, you'll see, this is one of my favorite graphs. You can kind of see the seasonality that's out there within over the past 6 or 8 months. And what this is it's the number of awards that are given per day over a time period. I took this, we didn't use the amounts here because that would be dependent on what the customer spent, but this is just the number that they were rewarded at a transactional level. So it's kind of interesting. You'll see that in the month of November of 2017, showing a fairly linear line up to around the end of November, and you see a little spike. So that obviously is Black Friday, right? And then it kind of jumps to continues that high rate of spend or the high rate of transactions through the Christmas holiday, right before Christmas. So we have a lot of last minute Christmas shoppers there, and then right after off the cliff on Christmas Day and the day after Christmas, and then recovers a few days later with a fairly linear trajectory to where we are today. So what's nice about this is that you see a fairly good regression line right in the middle of that black dotted line. And this also, one noticeable is our current spend that we see on average today is almost about to equal where we were in our holiday season in the past year, which is pretty phenomenal when you think that, you can use the old cliche of it's Christmas every day, right? But from a transaction, the number of transactions that we see, we're about to eclipse that, and we probably should within the next couple months. Other thing, hold on, should go back a second. So another thing that we had seen from a rewards perspective is within the first 3 months of launching the product, the amount of rewards that were redeemed by our members exceeded the entire prior year. So really, we had an over 4x increase in our redemption amounts, which is pretty phenomenal when you think about how engaged the members were previously to just that in just the first 3 months. So this kind of brings us up to date on where we are currently in our environment. The initiatives that we have right now are to expand the use of Power BI and SSRS, which is our other tabular platform that we're moving to. And that's away from the Hyperion knowledge share Oracle model that we have. We're also trying to add more of the self-service available, and this will kind of allow our business units to be more independent of IT or the report writers, and we're moving our IT experts that to have them more on the data cleansing and the modeling aspect, and certifying a pristine data set that the business users can then do their own self-service reporting to. So that's kind of the big initiative that we're moving forward with for the remainder of 2018 and into 19. From a data perspective, a lot of our data is now moving to SQL Server, and our development data is going into MongoDB, so more of the open source. And then we're kind of taking some strategies out of the data lake playbook, where we're beginning to store data in its raw format and apply schema on demand versus pre-processing that data and spending a lot of time massaging it before it gets into the warehouse. So this kind of allows us to be more nimble in our implementations of new applications or development. So what's next on our roadmap, and what technologies are we looking into in the future? You know, the big buzz these days is artificial intelligence and machine learning, and that's those are the every few years that those buzzwords seem to change, because about 3 it was all about big data and cloud, right? But right now, we're kind of focusing on the machine learning aspect of this, and after going to the Microsoft conference this past July, I realized that the tools for machine learning and AI were really starting to improve to a level where you no longer needed a PhD to do machine learning, right? Like that, Microsoft was creating tools that would kind of bring that down to what an architect could do or a senior level developer could handle. So that kind of bringing it all back to the POC aspect of it. We're now looking at a POC using the Azure Machine Learning Service to help mine our card data that we have in that transactional data. At the moment, we're meeting with various business units to try to find a problem that this can potentially solve. And I know that kind of sounds a little weird right now, because it seems like we found this machine learning hammer, and now we're trying to find a nail to hit. But due to and that's not normally the way we work here, but we find that the technology is so promising and has so much potential that it's worth the risk or the exploration and the time. So that's kind of our big initiative right now. It's from a heuristic technology perspective. All right, and that is the end of our presentation.
Wow, great. This is Greg. Great presentation. That's really good. Very impressive system. You started in about 2015, and what was the full sort of timeline? I mean, this was pretty involved to get to the point where you could then start tracking the results.
So in terms of the legacy platform being sunset, we started researching from a perspective in 2015, in the summer of 2015. But for the cash rewards development platform, that began around June of 2016 and June of 2017, and then went live in October of 2017.
Yeah, and the writing on the wall was kind of there when it came to the legacy reporting platform. It's been around for 15 years.
Yeah.
And when you think of it from a technology perspective, I mean, 15 years ago, we didn't have phones, like smartphones, right? So it was time. It was been used a long time, and 5 years is a long time when it comes to technology. So that being around for 15 years was that in itself was something that was a
concern.
Yeah, a concern for us.
So I personally. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that with the pace of, member expectation for instant fulfillment or quick fulfillment, our reporting platform as it stood today, it was not going to, or as it stood back then, it was not going to be viable for us to be able to, support our members in that way, because give them anything like cashback rewards in real time if we were dealing with reporting that would be a day or a week behind, just based on the way it has to be processed on a batch type basis.
Right. So I've got some questions came in through chat, and a couple of them, there was one from Anand and one from Ken that were sort of similar, basically asking about the cost of the program, and I guess from a couple's perspective, one, versus what you were doing previous to the new program, and then I'm kind of curious about, there's certainly a lot, utilization's going up and all that kind of stuff. Have you tried to figure out if it, kind of monetary rewards on an annual basis or anything like that? If, whatever you're able to share that's not confidential.
Yeah, so I'll start off and finish with the cost perspective when it comes to the performance of the product, but I'll start from a BI technology perspective. One of the reasons why we chose Power BI is due to the absolute, rock bottom dollar cost of entry, right? I mean, it costs us $10, it's $10 a month per user. And when you're initially looking at a product or launching a product, $10 a month per user is super low, right? So it's really easy for us to, compared to the other BI products that are out there, and if you've done this analysis and looking at various products that are out there, there are some BI products in the six figures, right? And you're looking at $10 a month. So it was really easy for us to pick our proof of concept, right? And that's kind of how we got started. That's what I was wanting to talk about. So eventually, we decided to move away from the Power BI cloud and switch to the on-prem version once it was announced last year at the Power BI that Microsoft announced last year. Now, the reason is, although the on-prem version has less functionality, it was important for us to manage reporting for everybody. And with the Power BI cloud, because you're counting members all the time, it was difficult to keep track of everyone and you kind of got into a budgetary area where, they don't need, this reporting platform, or this group doesn't need it because they don't use it too often. And so it kind of started to get segmented in who could see the reports and who the reports. And from an architectural perspective, you want everybody to see, or at least have the ability to see reports, and you shouldn't be counting users. So the Power BI on-prem version does not charge viewers. And that was the primary driver to why we decided to move forward with the on-prem version, even though it had slightly less functionality to it.
From a transactional perspective, we're seeing about a $200 increase in average spend per member for members who apply for the card and are using it. So that also increased the point of sale transaction count by 4 to now it's 5. But when you talk about the extra transaction that's occurring, we're seeing an increased spend overall. And what's more is you also see that we're starting to hit the targets that we want to in terms of our segmentation, our REM segmentation. So there's like a cashback type card is appealing to our credit-driven segment groups, and we are seeing them even spend to a more significant degree as we'd expect them to. But overall, we're also, on the flip side of that, wanting to make sure that 5% unlimited cashback isn't eating away too much at our interchange income. So Andrew did build reports that shows what we would call like the gamers of the system who are explicitly only looking at 5% cashback transactions and that's it. And can you speak to what?
Yeah, we noticed that it was there were some gamers of the system where all they would do is do 5% transactions, but it was a fairly small amount of people. I think it was under 1 or 2%. And overall, it's that, we achieved all these great results in budget, right? So our CFO did a review of the overall, cost of the project. And even with the percent rewards that we're giving away, we are within target and within budget of what we scoped out and we had budgeted earlier in the year.
Do you think I'm curious about this because you can't turn a TV on without seeing an advertisement for a credit card with some kind of rewards program, and they're all a little different than, do you think having this ability where there's different tiers and there's different categories is more engaging than, for instance, the one you see all the time, Citibank just gives 2% on everything. There's no sort of rules or changes, and it's just an automatic thing. And as opposed to every quarter you get to choose a different product, area of merchant and, and having tiers and stuff like that. Do you have any sense for how one compares to the other?
So we can't give exact details, or I can't give exact details on it because the report, so we just created a report in Power BI also that compares members versus unengaged members, and we define an engaged member right now, at least in this report, someone who has selected a 5% category versus someone who had not. And I can't go into numbers, but it is more than double the transactional spend.
And it should be said too that this member loyalty cash rewards platform is a part of a wider digital strategy that we're also working on from like a beacons perspective, for example. So we are working with our online banking vendor who's now starting to beta geolocation technology. So on our horizon as well is if a member has, as I'm sure lots of people on this call as well are seeing increased usage of mobile banking, and online mobile banking apps. So for any member that does have a mobile banking app, since we're talking about cashback rewards at the member level for this credit card, I'm going to start talking about cashback rewards for a transaction that could happen at a certain time frame or a certain place. So if they hit a geofence within a target, we want to that target red card where they get 5% cash back. In our program manager's mind, that person will geofence and get a 10% cash back reward in real time from their cashback card with Save. So they would get that push notification via their mobile app. And that's just like an example of how we're trying to start leveraging what's been created from this loyalty platform in terms of keeping our members engaged and being relevant and timely as they're making their point of sale transactions.
Yeah, and overall from a usage perspective or a reward loyalty perspective, it's really about your members at an individual level, right? I mean, think of another industry that just gives, like the example that you gave where, everyone with the same card gets the same rewards. It's like a blanket statement. Like, imagine another industry that did everything global like that. It's really about changing it to an individualized experience, right? And bringing that down to the rewards level.
So one more question, another question about cards, and then I'll switch gears just a little bit. Somebody asked, and I was wondering about this too, do you have a sense for kind of the percent of people who are revolvers on this card versus maybe people who are high users but just transact and then pay off every month?
Revolvers on the card.
Revolvers means like carrier balance.
Oh, okay. Actually, I don't know that.
That is reporting we have. Andrew and I aren't as familiar, but we do have a significant subset of our member base that is a transaction, their balances in full. From what our program manager has stated in the past, we are seeing in the revolvers. So of course that also helps us in terms of the ROI, because as we're giving 5% cash back, we are seeing those interest charges, nothing like insane, start to add up, but that is helping us on the flip side as well.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Just that's okay. A couple questions about your analytics organization. David asked how many employees are dedicated to sort of data/analytics in the organization, and I guess that's would probably be across different departments and so on. I guess maybe the broader question is, how are you guys? And there's also a question about where do the data analytics folks report? So maybe anything you could share about your organization and how you guys work together. And
there's a level of refinement that's starting to occur with data and analytics within our organization now. So a new thing that has just come to fruition is an analytics committee that brings together various analysts across the organization. So from finance, from marketing, IT, of course, and the various product lines will all start to meet on a monthly basis for data challenges, and even just share what kind of data and reporting is being done currently, because as is probably the case with lots of different organizations, when data lives in different areas, silos start to be created, and then if no one's coming together within a certain month or quarter, that data continues to live where it lives and is not being shared, and therefore there's no visibility from one area to another. And that just can't be anymore in terms of the types of products and services we're trying to build out for our members. So fortunately, from the top down, all the way from the C-suite down, there is this understanding now that data can't live in just one area, and it really needs to be a collaborative endeavor in order for us all to be successful.
Right, yeah, and to add to that, we're definitely, from a C-level perspective, where they're pushing more of a centralized model versus a decentralized model that we have. And primarily, and that not only works, that's also at a functionality, like what each of our analysts are doing. So in the past, our analysts were doing a lot of the cleaning of the data, and I mean that the cleansing of the data, the manipulation of that data, and the merging of that data, they were responsible for that. And we're trying to move away from that, where certain experts that are specifically set to just do the cleansing and the modeling, and then the analyst can actually take that result, that pristine cleansed result set, and then focus more on the analyzing part versus having to cleanse the data. Right? Because from an IT perspective, most IT people don't really understand, at least to the level that's necessary to create the end reports. Right? We're great at the technology side of it, which is good in a sense that the cleansing part of the data manipulation is great for the pure IT person. But really, you need that analyst to take data and actually get some business insight out of it.
You mentioned kind of the digital or data committee. How many, if you got everybody together in one room, how many do you think there might be in an organization your size?
Give me a moment, I'll take a look. Our inaugural meeting is next week, so we're all very excited. There are 17 that are invited.
Wow. And that includes some management.
Yes.
Not everyone is us, right? And Some of them are, I would even call quasi-analysts, like they have different duties other than being an analyst.
Pseudo-analysts, that's the thing, because of course, with lots of program managers, depending on how large or small their team is, sometimes our managers have to wear multiple hats in which they're also doing part-time analyst work to understand how their products are performing.
Sure. Yeah, there's probably a lot of overlap there, I would imagine.
Yes.
There's a question from David about, you had talked that really this is part of a larger digital strategy, and I think his question is basically how is that kind of organized internally also? Is that coming out of a specific area, or is it again sort of cross-functional with people in lots of different places contributing?
It is cross-functional. I would say that IT and marketing right now have a pretty heavy hand in that, because from a digital perspective with our like omni-channel approach, IT has significant resources involved there with the rollout of our Salesforce environment. We've had it in pilot mode for about 3 years now, and now it's really starting to ramp up to create one of the big initiatives is a 360-degree viewer. We have also decided to go with Marketing Cloud in terms of our marketing automation platform. So that, of course, is another large component of our digital strategy. And then with our website, we're also working on amounts of tracking with Google Tag Manager feeding into Google Analytics, so we understand what those digital journeys look like as someone goes from one point to another in our website. We see lots of different areas, and I completely forgot also digital banking has a large component there. We're running pilot programs like I mentioned for geolocation. We're running one right now with our baseball team. We have geofenced that stadium so that a member can enter a sweepstakes. Once they enter the stadium, they get a push notification on their app. They use their Safe Visa or debit or credit card. They are automatically entered to be a part of the sweepstakes, win like $500 or something like that. So there are lots of different initiatives within the digital space that are coming together. Marketing and IT have a pretty heavy focus on it right now.
There's a question that I want to get to, the specific question about Power BI from Sandra, and I'll just read it verbatim. It looks like with Power BI on premises, people are not required to have a license, either pro or premium, to see all the dashboards you share on the cloud. Is that correct?
So for Power BI, there is a larger fee to get in the door, right? So it either costs, I think the minimum fee to get Power BI Premium is around $5,000. But once you, or you can get it through the SQL Server Enterprise License Agreement, it's included. But at that point, once you go with Premium, then viewers are free. Like it doesn't matter how many viewers you have, but authors are still $10 a month. So you only pay for the authors and not the viewers. While if you went with Power BI Pro, even a viewer needs a license. So we kind of figured out what the best ROI was, and for our organization, the Power BI Premium made more sense.
Also from Sandra, a good question. This is interesting across organizations anyway. What titles are given to those who analyze the data, not necessarily clean it, but the people who use it to make business decisions? For instance, data analyst, marketing analyst, business, and so on. And then I guess I'd also add on, are those roles, are the cleaning versus analysis really that separate? I know you addressed it a bit, or is it kind of a lot of overlap there?
I would say that, our analysts are the ones that currently, right today, our analysts do a lot of the cleaning, right? And we want to move. we want to.
We want to have a trusted data source that exists beyond a different analyst, a finance analyst or marketing analyst having to go in there and cleanse it. IT and like Andrew leading that initiative is to really ETL the data so that it has become a trusted data source and an IT data mart that any analyst can access. I think that's the vision.
Yeah, and that's supposed to have some consistency, right? Because each analyst could cleanse the data in a different way. Our data that comes out of our core is not very clean, instead of, to put it nicely.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a significant amount of time and effort that, we're reinventing the wheel a lot because of the multiple ways that people are cleansing data, and it's inconsistent, which leads to obviously inconsistency, right? So by centralizing that to a certain subset of people that have the expertise and the experience, then we drive consistency to all the reporting that happens downstream.
Yeah, that sounds like a great approach. There were a couple questions just basically on the size of the credit union, and Colin responded. I don't know if he's an employee or just is good at looking stuff up online. Does $2.8 billion in assets with 670 employees and 226,000 members sound about right?
That is accurate, yes.
Very good. So Colin has good information. Let's see. Looking at the rest of them. Well, I think we got most of the questions, and which is good timing because we're about out of time. I guess. There was another question. Anand had asked, are the slides available? I don't know if CUlytics provides the slides directly, but we do have recorded versions of the webinars will be online. This one and all of our past ones are available online as you wish, which would certainly have some of that information, or perhaps reach out to Andrew or Grace to if you want to ask them for the slides directly.
Yeah, and again, we're feel free to reach out to us either via LinkedIn or through the CUlytics website, because we're both
members.
Yeah, members for it.
Excellent. Okay, well, so I guess I'll go ahead and wrap up and just say thanks to Andrew and Grace. Really great presentation. Thanks for handling all those questions at the end. I think there were a lot of questions, drove a lot of interest because what you've done is very impressive. And I know I was sitting here thinking that would be a great kind of program to implement in any credit union. So I'll just mention for everybody again, please feel free to visit the website, check out the blogs, look at the vendor solution gallery, take the survey about the next analytics summit if you would like to have some influence on what the topics are that might be available. And then lastly, I'll just advertise our next webinar is on September 19th, titled Einstein Analytics for Credit Unions. And I don't know any of the details, but it sounds pretty good because, I want to be smart like Einstein. So I hope everybody will go to the website and register for that as well. So any last comments from Andrew or Grace before we go?
Thanks for the opportunity to present to you guys, and hope to see you at the next conference.
Excellent. Good. It'd be great to meet you in person as well. So, so for everybody at CUlytics, and we just say thanks for joining and look forward to seeing you all next time.